the security dialogue.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. This is the Security Dialogue on Muslim Television and Media International. Last week, we had the privilege to have Justice Abdullahi, who is a lawyer, a legal private practitioner, and then a lecturer with University of Professional Studies to help us understand the issues around terrorism, human rights, and then illegal issues. Because like he indicated last week, when it comes to issue of terrorism, for instance, in the earlier days, people were liberating themselves, and as a result, some of them used force. And because of that, if you look at the issue or the religion Islam, which has been tagged, all these years as a violent grouping. But we all know the word Islam stands for peace. So I do not know at what point in time that the people that are carrying the word of peace will themselves become violent people. And so we try to understand all of these things in the perspective that we'll be able to, forestall and have a very peaceful environment or peaceful communities to live in. This is the concluding part or the part 2 of such a discussion, and I'm privileged once again to have Justice Abdullahi here in the studio for us to understand some of the very technical words that emanated when we had the first discussion. For instance, issue of a lawful act and unlawful act as a matter of right, wanting to have your right to something. At what point in time it becomes lawful, and at what point in time it becomes unlawful. And then we also look at some of the measures that we can put in place to address our concerns legally, looking at, the issues of human rights. So, lawyer, you are welcome once again to the studios of
Thank you so
MTA.
much, my brother.
Yeah, how was it last week?
Alhamdulillah. At least the feedback from around
Wonderful.
the country appears very good.
Wonderful, wonderful.
We can only thank Allah.
Wonderful.
We are also contributing to not only national discourse, but also the development of Islam.
Wonderful,
Inshallah.
wonderful. Yeah, so straight to the point. Last week, you made mention of lawful and unlawful acts, and in an attempt for us to understand even how the United States of America today, when at a point they wanted to liberate themselves from the British, they had to go through some sort of, a rigorous exercise. Which
Acts of terrorism. Literally.
Act of terrorism.
And actually, it's not in dispute that they committed acts of terrorism at the time. It's not in dispute at all.
Yeah.
The only thing is that it is in the past, so nobody talks about it. Nobody cares about it.
So
Mandela was accused of being a terrorist.
Sure. But even though today they are enjoying. So I want to now understand at what point in time with issues of terrorism, and like I'm saying, people are celebrated as nationalists. So at what point in time an act becomes lawful or unlawful, looking at the minority nature, brutalities, and abuse of other people's rights?
Under no circumstance would an act of terrorism become a lawful conduct.
Okay.
Because you cannot bring back the lives that you lose. You may think that it's for the greater good. Sometimes there's the argument that are made that, yes, lives could be lost, people, property could be damaged and all of that, but it's for the greater good. I do not think that argument holds. It can never be for a greater good. Maybe in the past it worked.
But some are also arguing that, when it comes to, for instance, fighting for independence, definitely there'll
be acts of terrorism.
Yes.
I agree. But you see, the point is that would there not be any other means of achieving the same thing?
Okay.
Can't you have any other means? That is, for me, that is the reason why I am saying that. You cannot use an act of terrorism, kill people's family, loved ones, and sometimes even you, the perpetrator, you'd also lose your own, your colleagues and your loved ones. You cannot justify those lives on the basis of the greater good. If it was indeed for the greater good, why don't you be the first person in the line of casualties? Because you can also go and others to also enjoy. So if you think that is actually very good, if you think it is worth it, put your wife, your sons, put your father and your mother, your parents, put your siblings and yourself ahead, so that when the first bomb falls, you'll be the first people to leave. Now, if that will be sweet enough, then you ask yourself how it's felt, how other people are feeling it. If it's so easy and simple, just put yourself in the shoes of the person leaving this planet because of your conduct. If it is good enough, then you can discuss the greater good argument.
Okay.
Now, so long as it cannot be sweet if you are the victim, definitely it will never be sweet if someone else is the victim. This is the point that I'm making. Okay. And this is why I'm saying that the greater good argument can never be a solution, because I believe that there is always an alternative to violence. There's always an alternative to violence. If there is an alternative that can be utilized, can be taken advantage of, can be leveraged to achieve the same objective, why use violence?
Okay, so from your standpoint, I mean, you are a legal person, and I remember somewhere last week when we were having a discussion, you made mention of, for instance, demonstrations, press conferences, and all of that. But there are other thoughts and arguments that even demonstrations in itself, because, for instance, as you mentioned last week, when it comes to act of terrorism, maybe the physical issues alone will not be the only thing that will hinder on somebody's right, but even mean psychological effects and all of those kind of things.
You leave somebody completely traumatized for the rest of his life.
So in all of this, what legally, what will be the best approach for us to address our concerns? Because act of terrorism definitely borders on issues of people want to have their freedom to practice or to live well, within a society. From that legal perspective, what are the proper and the very necessary ways that we can use as mitigating measures to address our concerns?
The first option is always the best option, and that is a non-violence option.
Okay.
That's all about it. Now, having said that, if the question is where are the non-violence options?
Exactly.
There may be 1,000,001. I can only prefer few ones.
Okay.
But specific circumstances will determine which of them will be appropriate. Okay. Specific circumstances will determine that.
Okay.
There could be times where civil society will be the best place to use. If you're able to court civil society onto your side, and with the needed resources, you can go on a campaign tour, and you'll be amazed sometimes to find that the masses are actually in support of your cause. The political leadership may not be in support of your cause, but the masses may be in support of that. And these are the masses that, if you had exhibited your acts of terrorism, they would have been the casualties. Most of the times, the political leadership will never be victims. It's always the watcher vendor by the gutter, the cocoa seller by the kiosk, and the son of the nobody, the watchman. These are all the victims all the time. The farmer who has nothing to live on or to live for. And these are the people who amazingly will be the ones even in support of your cause. But they are the people that your acts of violence sometimes affect. And so the answer, once again, is choose anything but violence. Anything but violence. The specifics, as I said, we cannot exhaust it. Some, like I said, maybe media campaign, maybe one. And media campaign is always the best thing. Education, number two. And of course, sometimes media campaign and education go hand in hand sometimes. Of course, there are times where you need to use demonstrations that I've mentioned earlier. The reason why I've never mentioned the legal, the courts, is because sometimes you just do not have the avenue to seek legal redress. But where it's available, of course, it may be, if it is a legal means, of course, why not? Pursue it. Sometimes you may pursue the entire legal angle to the last spectrum. And the outcome will still be the same. It will be against you. Yes, it may look so, but it is always better It may be the case that in the century or something, the decade that you live in, the legal regime was such that it would automatically go against your battle.
Okay.
But what you do not know is this. Life never remains static. We are in a fluid system. Things change.
Okay.
Just give yourself the next generation. And you no longer have to be coming back from your grave to fight.
Okay.
The system itself will be fighting the battle you're fighting.
Okay.
And sometimes this is what I ask all of us. In 1992, when Ghana went to the polls, we had no constitution. We had to vote into place a constitution, which is what we use today. Now, at the time we were voting into constitution, we went to the polls to vote this constitution into place. No one criticized the kind of constitution we had. So imagine if you were alive at the time and you were campaigning against the adoption of the constitution. That battle looked almost impossible to win.
Okay.
And indeed, it was not a winnable battle.
Okay.
Because the country was simply fed up with having military regime. For 11 years, we had been under military regime. For 11 good years. Overwhelmingly, everyone voted yes for the Constitution of Ghana. Guess what? Barely 30 years. Today, everybody overwhelmingly is fighting against the same constitution. The same country.
Yeah, recently we went for NCC roundtable discussion on the Constitutional Review Committee's work to see how they can review. And I think Justice Shrem, Dr. Jenshaw was there as one of the lead reviewers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And as I talk to you today, just today, I think yesterday or today, the majority leader, Chairman Sabonsu, has inaugurated a committee to review the Constitution.
Okay.
Just yesterday or today.
Okay.
This is what happened.
Okay.
This looked impossible in 92. 30 years, everybody's asking for the Constitution to be thrown away. But imagine, if you had passed on 20 years ago, if you had passed on 10 years ago, and you had fought your entire life for a new Constitution, you would have considered yourself a failure.
Okay. Okay.
But what you think you failed is what is yielding results today.
Okay, thank you very much. So when for you the prescription, and I'm going to ask my next question because you are also a Muslim. How justifiably will it be when it comes to standing up for one's rights? Even though you have professed some of the systems, but at the very personal level, what actions should we adopt?
Okay, thank you. Luckily, I had an opportunity to discuss this also at another Islamic forum.
Okay.
And my answer is very simple. Before we started the program, your introductory remarks, you said that we are Muslims and your religion means peace. Now, if your religion means peace, and you've had a prophet who at one point in time is alleged that someone, a non-Muslim, had walked into his mosque and literally urinated either in the mosque or around the mosque. And everybody around picked arms to slaughter this person. And this, your prophet, stopped. For a man who had urinated on his doorstep at a place of worship, he stopped people from attacking him and let this man walk. Now, the history has it that this man, in few moments, returned and converted to Islam. And why did he do so? History has it that the man did so not because of all these people who are today even celebrated, because they were the pillars behind the prophet. But this person converted to Muslim because, per his understanding, the conduct exhibited by the prophet was unmatched. He knew what he was doing. He came with an intention to provoke. He did the provocation. The people around wanted to beat him, others even wanted to kill him. But the man who was the direct victim said, nope, you can't do that. You couldn't simply do that. That's completely wrong. Let him walk. The man walked and returned to convert to Islam. Now, this is on the personal level.
Yeah.
If you're a Muslim, and this is what your prophet did, and you are accused of being a terrorist or whatever wrong you might have been accused of, wrongfully or truthfully, whichever way it goes, and you say you cannot stand that.
Wouldn't you say that?
And the only language you understand is Bugashi.
But I mean,
That's the only language you understand. Every time wrong people are being invited to perpetrate acts of violence, you are the one who is called. Your name is the first name on the list. Every time they need people to go and to do any acts of violence, either to kill, to rob, to murder, to do all kinds of negatives, you are the first person. If your name is not Muhammad, it's Suleiman. If it's not Suleiman, it's Ibrahim, it's Musa.
Okay.
And you are always the first, and yes, you call yourself a Muslim.
Okay. Now,
And your prophet did this. And you can't even do 1% of that.
Okay. Now let's take ourselves from to a bit of the international space, because we are living in that. I mean, if you look at the sub-region and what is happening, if you go to Mali, if you go to Burkina Faso, I'm told in Mali about 95% of them are Muslims. You go to Burkina Faso, it's almost about 80-something%. But these are, aside the issue of religion, but these individuals also have a certain lineage, cultural, identity-wise, and all of that. Do you think that the world has been fair to the Muslim world when it comes to issues? Because some of the things that they also do are in an effort to make sure that they have their freedom. Would you think that the world has been fair?
So you see, I will not sit here and pretend that the West is out for anything good. Nobody likes you because you don't like your religion.
Okay.
The people, that you are interacting with, the Western world, have shown consistently that they do not like your religion. But should that be a reason for you to also give up on the good in you?
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
When they didn't like you, they didn't use acts of violence against you. They used your political machinery. And you are using violence. You are the one damaging yourself.
Okay.
Why don't you use the same means the person used? Assuming. Of course, I'm not being childish here, but I think that using violence as a response to the political machinations of the West is not a good response.
Okay.
I think we can use a non-violent means.
Have you done enough
to achieve that?
Have you
now,
done
you mentioned, I'll answer your question, but you've mentioned Mali and Burkina, and indeed other West African countries, which are predominantly Islamic. Truth is this, most of these countries, the same problem. Their religion is only an addition. Their problems are more political.
Okay.
It's more political. And it's either politics from France or politics from other Western countries infiltrating the system. And sometimes it's the same issue we talked about, minority feelings. They may all be Muslims. But when one person feels he is of a particular tribe, and predominantly people from other particular tribes have always held political leadership in their country, you confuse that person's motive, political motive with his religious affiliation.
Okay.
And that is where sometimes the West come in.
Okay.
When a white, an European, does something wrong, he's never called with his religion or even his ethno background into issue.
Okay.
But when you do the same thing, they'll call him, the black man from Ghana or the Muslim from Ghana. Your identity is completely shattered, but your religious affiliation or your skin color is used as the basis in determining the issues under play. Which is why, because you are the one living in a glass house, you would have to be more careful so you don't break it.
Okay.
Because the thing is, the world is against you in a way. And your knowledge of that, your knowledge of how everyone is against you should inform you as to how to relate to the rest of the world. And that would mean that you have to be more careful
Okay.
Because the same thing you're doing, another person would do and literally would walk without anything happening. It's a walk in the park for him.
Okay.
But when you do it, remember you are an ambassador of a particular religion. You are an ambassador of Allah. So long as you are alive. You may have all your shortfalls as a sinner, as a human being. As the Quran says, a man is born a sinner. A man is in fact, you are literally, just by being human being, you are predisposed to sin. That's what the Quran tells you. And so as for sin, you will sin. But the kind of thing that would lead someone to insult your Allah, as much as possible, try and avoid it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much on that. Very soon we'll end this section. I have here in the studio Justice Abdullahi, who is a private legal practitioner, a law lecturer at the University of Professional Studies. And he has been helping me to unpack the issues around terrorism, human rights, and the legal matters that surround all of this act that we sometimes see. And in a while, he mentioned the fact of how the Prophet, received someone who came to his mosque to, as it is, provoke him, and the way manner he received that person. It tells you that there's a greater good when we adopt the issue of non-violence in addressing our issues. But however, there is no justification for killing, and for that matter, mass killing as a way to register one's displeasure, as far as, whether you belong to a minority group or not. Lawyer,
Yes.
we will end very soon, and I want to, all this things that we are looking at borders on security.
Absolutely.
What will be your take when you consider the current security situations? And I still look at it from, the legal point of view. Because we have seen some presidents trying to go 3-term system, and that has brought some sort of chaotic situations leading to mass killings here and there and all of that. And all this is border on human rights and all of that. Your very final words, and then some advice to the larger community out there as far as acts of terrorism and its legal issues are concerned.
I would caution all of us that violence in all its forms are not good.
Okay.
And regardless of the perpetrator, whoever he is, and however the motive the person may have. And so for the larger community, for the rest of us, if you see anything, as the campaign goes, say it, report it. You may not trust the system, but it's always better to report acts of violence, whether it's from a folk, a kin, friend, whoever you think is doing anything wrong. It's better to report it, because that one rather is for the greater good. It may end up saving all of us from something worse. And I would strongly urge all of us that whatever your grievances are, whatever you think your difficulties are, there's always an answer. You may not have the answer today, but my guarantee to you is that there's always an answer somehow, some way. It's very easy for me to sit here and think that I know it all. It's very easy for me to tell you, if you're watching us, that things are that easy out there. I can assure you it's not easy for any of us. It's very difficult. Sometimes you also don't have the answers. But you do not give up simply because there are no answers. Okay. You do not give up. You strive harder. You fight. You pray. And you do whatever it takes, knowing that there's always Allah. Remember, as a musician says, the day you were born, you didn't look like the way you are today. You had no means of even moving from one point to the other. Today, you're able to move around. Today, you're able to do a lot of things on your own without the support of anybody. That alone is enough justification that you can do better for yourself if you give yourself the opportunity. Just allow some freedom and listen to what the Quran says. So if you're not a Muslim, you can at least take consolation from how life has been for others. Some people tell you they came from nowhere, today they are somebody. Yours may not be economic circumstances. Yours may probably be some political circumstances. But remember, even the greatest of dictators could not hold on to power for the rest of their lives. So your 3 tenure, 4 tenure, 10 tenure will not be a basis for you to live forever on planet Earth.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This has been another wonderful discussion. No act of violence will ever secure us the kind of peace that we want in our society. And as a Muslim, you have a greater responsibility to ensure that whatever dispensation, whatever environment, whatever community that you find yourself, you have to be an advocate of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the advent of the day, promised Messiah, as we all are his followers. I mean, you need to adhere to the principles and the rules and regulations that have been outlined in order for us to have that kind of peaceful environment that we are looking for. And so today on the show, we had Justice Abdullahi once again, who is a private legal practitioner, a law lecturer with University of Professional Studies here in Accra, who has helped us to deal with the issue of terrorism, human rights, and legal matters. And once again, he espoused that there is no act that can be lawful when the impact or it becomes destructive to human society. And so as a community, this is what we seek to do. Whatever the program has been designed, it's been designed for us to promote the well-being of people, to look at peace and security. This has been the Security Dialogue. My name is Sadiq Educhum. Until we meet again, same time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.